exhale for a moment. This week, I have had, as with many people, just watching everything unfold, and I just have more questions than anything else. I've found that I've not reacted. If anything, my reaction has been to just try to observe and try and understand what's really, really going on. I think that's just been my nature. It's a Scorpio thing, just trying to get to the bottom of the why of everything. And so these are my whys, and throughout the week I've just been making notes and just writing and just trying to formulate some kind of sense of how we're going to move forward. What's going to be the outcome of this? There are so many terms that are being bandied around, and I have a real bug in my bonnet for popular terms, especially when people are using words that they don't normally use. But that's the second thing. But just making. So if you see me looking this way, it's because I've got my list of my laptop with a list of just bits of notes that I've been thinking about and still haven't got to anything, and it's just wanting to have a discussion more than anything, but there just seems to be, we're still in this reactive mode. As I suppose if you saw the visual that was presented to you, then the human being in you would react. But I've got questions, and I think more than anything, I'm not even trying to give you any conclusions unless I think I have some, and I've kind of figured them out, which I don't think I have. I've just got more questions, and I'd like to kind of air my questions, and maybe if you want to discuss the questions, that'd be cool, because I'd like to air it out, because at the moment there's not a lot of people that are prepared to be in question mode. So yeah, just taking it all back and just observing the entire thing what have we achieved by the events that have taken place, this worldwide response to one core event. And I'm just seeing, what have I written here? What I'm seeing is the repeated agitation of the trauma of racism and its subsequent effect on the population. I mean the population at whole. And just for the sake of this video, I'm going to say, the black community and the white community. So immediately creating the divide that is creating the divide. So one thing I had here was a question of, and it seems that it's been going on for years, that there is there's a game in keeping us divided. And for instance, if the variables were changed, what would the responses have been? So if the victim in the incident and the murderer in the incident were both white, what would that have created? If they were both black, what would that have created? If the positions racially were reversed, what would that have created? We'll never know, because it doesn't seem to be as newsworthy. It doesn't play along with that eternal push of seeing the black community being suppressed by the white community, and the white community being in a position, in a higher position, being in a position of privilege. Although I'm not denying that systems are set in place almost everywhere for that to perpetuate itself. And the reason it continues to perpetuate itself is because nobody asks a question as to if it seems like it is a good idea. I don't feel like people just go along with the go along, you know. And as a black woman, I've got a myriad of stories to tell you about all of my encounters with racism. Many, some bring you to tears if you want. But is that gonna stop this? If I tell you how much pain I've been in, if I keep telling the stories about how certain things were denied to me, things that people said that really cut me and got me in my feelings. And as a result of me being in my feelings, didn't solve anything, because on many an occasion I didn't confront them about that, because I was just like, and I'll go into this, so I just chewed on it and internalized that. And I'm no psychologist, but I do have a basic understanding of what it means to be in a response mode with regards to trauma. And I kind of saw two different sides here. So from the black community, I saw literally fight and flight mode for the most part, because suddenly you see that and you resonate with that, and then it brings up all the stuff, and then the reaction is this. And then from the white community, I saw freeze and fawn mode, which played out like people not knowing what to do, too scared to speak because they think they're going to offend people, guilt, denial, and it just means we're just going round in circles, because I don't feel that sitting in either end of our trauma is helping. It's like, and I mentioned it to a friend of mine when I was just kind of like having this week-long mulling and meditation on what the heck is going on, basically. And I'm like, and I was saying, well, imagine you are two siblings within a family, and one is the favoured child and one is not. In fact, that other child gets abused, and every move is made to hold that child back and to make that child feel pain. And initially, the favoured child doesn't really realise that it's being favoured. It just sees the way things are. And then suddenly, as you know, the children grow older, then the one who is being abused then will say to the other sibling, listen, you're the favoured child, you're getting all of these benefits, can't you see what's happening? And it just depends on how that child chooses to respond. You can decide that it's not true, which is the common response of a favoured child, or you can try and understand where they're coming from. It depends how much you care about what they're feeling. You can deny all you like, but if someone is telling you that they're suffering and they're in pain, whether you think it's true or not from your point of view, it's a big thing to kind of come up with for no reason, right? So how do we heal from that? And maybe it's a very basic way of putting things, but it's not until you remove yourself from that situation that you can start to heal and decide what you're going to, how you're going to overcome it as a person who's being abused. Not as easy to do when it's embedded into society itself. However, if you do become aware of what is being played, how you're being played, the way things are being set up to trigger you and to potentially hamper your progress, then you can see it coming. You can see, you know when you're walking into a situation that, okay, I've seen this before, I've done this before. It means you need to be stronger, and it's unfortunate as things are that to get through, you do have to be much stronger. You have to, and this is me pulling it back to experience now, you have to then you recognise the game that's being played. You also recognise the denial that people might have around your very real and lived experience, and you have to become strong for it, which means that and not everybody is able to formulate that fortitude within themselves, but up until now that's what we've had to do. Or you will be continually triggered by events and words in particular. Only yesterday, and I wasn't in on this conversation, I just overheard somebody say, I'm not being racist, but, and I just thought, well, anytime you have to preface something with the fact that you're not going to be derogatory or rude, or we know what that means. But if anything, I just thought, how sad that we've got to this point where we're still blinded by the things that are set up around us that aren't helping. Maybe you don't think you're being racist, but you are. But this is not to apportion blame. It's just that if you know that something is hurtful, or if you know that you're about to point something out that has no common sense, why are you continually churning out that narrative? If you know that you're not being racist, but, So this racism situation is this whole racism worldwide thing that's been just poured into our bones generation after generation after generation. And I don't know if I mentioned before, but when I had a conversation, or it was a Facebook exchange, it was very light actually, with a black woman who, somebody had shared something that I'd written, and from the thumbnail they couldn't tell that I was black. So, they come on there and just going, well, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't understand, So I responded because I just felt that she needed to look at the point that I wasn't going to just rail off at the situation. I was going to ask questions, because the point behind that post was that I didn't know at that point, and I do now, where the Blackout Tuesday Square business had started. So I just wanted to question it. So, I don't know where it's come from. I don't know what it's meant to achieve. I don't get it. Does anyone, can anyone enlighten me? And I've seen some people chose to do it, some people didn't. I don't know what it made you feel by doing that. But there was something that she wrote that I've heard before from Black women who are convinced that they are never going to heal from this. This is something that we'll never get over it, we'll never change it. And I personally disagree, actually. For one, declaring that over yourself is, well, it's done and dusted. If you've convinced yourself that that's it, we're never going to heal, I gracefully implore you to exclude me from that we. I'm not under the impression that we are never going to heal. There is also always a healing that can be done. Maybe the ways that we've been trying to do it are not, it would seem, as effective. Also, to kind of tack onto the end of making declarations over yourself is the mantra, the speak of repeating "I can't breathe," in particular when you have a mask over your face. And I know it's going to zim the fact that some people, but if we know anything about, you don't speak, like anyone who comes from the Black community, man, you just don't put word on yourself. You know that. You're like your aunts, your mothers, your grandmothers would have told you that kind of stuff. You don't put your mouth on me, you don't put your mouth on yourself. We can breathe, and we can heal as well. And it's not necessarily, who knows how it gets done, but these things stay with us. And in having different conversations with women and, listening to different spiritual teachers and the way that they talk about healing, and it's only in this generation, as I understand it, let's say within the past 20 odd years or so, maybe even before, but the real movement of self-inquiring and healing has only really come to the fore. So we've carried our ancestors' pain with us, but maybe only now is the time that we've actually started to really examine what this means to us, to really analyse anything. Our relationships, our relationship with food, our relationship with our parents, our relationships with money, anything. So in this period of when we're awakening to ourselves and awakening to the parts of ourselves that we think need healing, why can't this be part of it? This is something that we can do. And it takes contemplation, and it's not easy because it's centuries old, it's in our bones, but it doesn't mean it can't come through. Here's another question. Because we know we all, with the programming that we have of each other, black and white, we as adults, because another point, as children don't have this until you start to really put it in them. And yes, I talked about it being at a cellular level, but that's not going to get activated until it gets activated. It's like that we have the potential to take on any illness, disease, anything like that. The potentiality is there. The catalyst is what actually creates it, and I believe that's the same of racism, the potentiality is there because it's in the air. It's been in the air for decades. So we have this potentiality, and the potentiality gets triggered. The door kind of like threw me off. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, this is the point that I was getting to. So imagine, so we have these ideas about each other on site as adults because the messaging has been played in deep. So we have these ideas of each other just on site unconsciously, whether we choose to admit it or not. And, you know, sometimes they can be cute and endearing. Most times not. What would happen, is this a good idea? If within a safe space, and only, you know, who knows what that was like, is we sat and we really listened to each other about what is it that you think when you see a white person, and similarly, what is it you think when you see a black person? I don't see colour's not an answer, because you do. We do. Because if we've got to this age, in this world, it gets pointed out to you. And yeah, if you see children playing, they seem to be oblivious, you know. Just tapping onto the children one, I just saw just this little girl. I don't have kids, and but there's a latent maternal instinct within me, and some people really championing this little girl who probably was 6, 7 tops, doubt it, and screaming, you know, little black girl with beads and plaits, and screaming about no justice, no peace, screaming, and adults all standing around her cheering her on and filming her with their phones. And I saw that and I'm just like, I nearly cried. That, more than anything, upset me, because I'm like, what? Those years are so damn precious, you know, and you're putting her in that situation. She doesn't know. You know, what level of conversation do you have to tell this girl about for her to, like, convince that is the thing to do? And, you know, I don't know, because I don't know what she would understand with all of this unrest going on. I spoke to someone before, and they're saying when they were 9, they went to see the Berlin Wall come down, and they had an idea that something was happening, but they weren't completely sure, and they were 9. And it wasn't, of course, until years later that they could look back and put the language to their experience. But at the time it didn't make sense. And that's someone who's 9 in the midst of a major national overturning and changing, which there's this here. So I just, what are you doing? Why put a child in the middle of an adult's conflict? That didn't really sit with me. Questions. Where am I? Talking too long. Okay, I'm going to make it shorter. So, you know, I have the 2 points, my questions and then my bigger thoughts, is I have questions surrounding the events. I have questions surrounding the protests. Who is fueling the fire? The more I keep trying to see that it's an organic situation, the more I'm finding anything but that to be the case. So the question outside of that is where's the benefit coming from? Who is benefiting from this? And not just to have people divided, but money, because it's the way the world is running at the moment, is like the money trail. You take it all the way back and you kind of work out what's involved. You know, that and all my uncoverings is for a completely different conversation for those who are open, and still people are not, so let's not do that. Who benefits from having people just fearful and divided and angry? Because people have been, you know, fearful for the past 2-3 months already with this virus, and not a week before we couldn't go to church, we couldn't gather at big sporting events or in the park with more than 2 or 3 people, or whichever way the wind is flopping on the rules surrounding all of this. And then suddenly thousands of people are up in each other's space. What's going to be the outcome of that? There's a potentiality of using that to perpetuate a further narrative. Separate discussion, but you know, you see where my mind's going. And then bigger question, because sometimes being on the ground is you can't see for looking. So here's one. Why were we born for this? Were we born to live in a world where it's just fighting and division and anger and fear and seeing each other as separate, and forgetting that the majority of us are human? Most people just want to get on with their lives, you know, they just want to have an income. They would like to do something that's not too taxing or boring or stressful, be surrounded by people that make them feel good and be able to do good stuff. Most people just want to do that and live their lives accordingly. And the world hasn't been like that, so let's not try and get back to normal, because normal was failing everybody, and we haven't devised a new normal. Normal also has connotations of just, you know, there it is, normal, banality. We just keep it as it is and we maintain normality. That doesn't create anything. It's like we have an opportunity, if we're going to choose to burn the thing down, to create from the bottom up. But on a spiritual level, for anyone who has any spiritual practice or religious practice or anything along those lines, and I mentioned this last week, and because we know that there was always going to be a change of times, and clearly systems are breaking down now. So what can we create from this? Remembering that we all were born the same way. We, you know, simplifying it, but sometimes simple is the answer. We are all spiritual beings. We are all created to come and contribute to the world in some sort of way. It doesn't mean that you have to, you know, go and build anything bigger than you want to, but in our hearts, if we kind of looked at each other really and got out of our feelings and our rage and our disappointment and our being afraid to say what's on our mind for fear of offending people. Like, offence is even if someone says something to you, it's how you respond to it that makes the difference. No, it's overhearing someone saying that I'm not being racist, and just thinking, poor bitch, sorry, B word, but you know, you clearly are, and you're in denial about where you're at. It's these things will only actually have any kind of weight if I jump on board with them, if I choose to say that's not me. I'm something else. I was born for something better than that. I've always been something better than that, and I've lost sight of myself. And let's try and rediscover ourselves. Maybe we need to sit and have difficult discussions and tell each other, I spent my life just getting it wrong. You know, I bought into the system, and it brainwashed me to believe that you were a certain way. And I was aware that doors were closed or doors were open because of the beliefs that we held to, because it suited us to just play that game. And if we decide that we're not going to play the game of racism anymore, then it loses its weight. But for as long as people react to situations either in fight or flight or in freeze and fawn, the issue itself will not be resolved. So I've come to no conclusion whatsoever, but I've just put questions out there, because this is how we start. If we close down, if we decide that we can't heal, or that it will never get better, and the world is going to hell in a handbag, I truly don't believe that it is, to be honest. But like I said, it's another chat for another day. Love ya.